What are some of the things that you showed up for that you nearly didn't? Welcome to day 7. Today is like a reflective episode, and I hope that up till this point in this video series that you've been following along with the various activities, the various probes I've been giving you, the daily challenges, and just following along on this journey. And today you're going to identify your personal power. I'm going to get the ball rolling so that you can also start thinking of those times that you have showed up when you nearly didn't. As you recall, and as I recall every instance, I'm going to recap what showing up for this thing which I nearly missed gave me in my life. What I gained from it as an experience that I wouldn't have otherwise had, or a life skill, or a belief in myself. What you should be feeling as you're following along with this is aha moments. Oh yeah, I did show up for something like that too, and this was what I gained for it. At any point of this video, when you're feeling something, just go ahead and type it down into the comments, because that action of typing it in also helps you to register that one experience where you were personally powerful. You pushed your comfort zone, you did something that gave you a very different result. You changed your outcome. You helped yourself jump a different timeline in life. But without wasting any more time, let's get into it. One of the times that I thanked myself for showing up was when I pre-arranged to go to a car showroom to go for a test drive or to visit a luxury housing project. Even when the funds weren't ready at that point of time, I believed they were on the way. However, something happened and plans got delayed. The funds were not going to be on the timeline as expected, not even for the foreseeable few months to test drive that car, to go check out that house. But I went anyway. Before I knew it, I was in the habit of checking out various test drives, going to different nice housing estates around Bangkok, and also visiting various events, because by matters of association that this person had turned up at this kind of a car event, this kind of a housing event, he would be qualified to be at this kind of a social event as well. Even though my pocket wasn't ready, these things made my heart and my mind ready for the success and prepared me even more. Yes, this is the life that I want. I can see it, I can feel it. Even got to the point where I test drove a car or inspected a house. I could even nitpick about it, as though I was discerning an experience, which I already was, because this became my new level of personal acceptance. Then there was this time. It would be a running race. Super early in the morning. I had to get there like 4 a.m. I can't remember if it was a 7 kilometer, or 8 kilometer, or a 10 kilometer. One of those things. To show up for a running race at a time that I would previously be going to bed at, I was like, wow, this is a huge transition. I didn't even believe that I would be capable of doing that. But once I did, there were more and more early morning events that became part of my lifestyle. And before I knew it, I transited from this late night person to someone who sleeps no later than midnight most of the time and waking up early on a fairly regular basis. At least according to the metrics on my watch, I'm much more rested, and I certainly do feel a lot more freshness and energy. Next up, there were the phone calls that maybe the old me wouldn't have wanted to pick up. I might look at the caller and I'm thinking, what good could this person possibly have to say? But when I started to tell myself like, hey, look, this is not adult behavior. Be responsible, pick up the call. And more often than not, it was better than I expected. More often than not, it was good news rather than bad. I guess it's partly due to because I had an ex-spouse who would gaslight me and give me a lot of narcissistic abuse, that I automatically associated that, every call that I pick up, could potentially give me some kind of emotional trauma, to the point that I get apprehensive about picking up phone calls. I just kind of prejudge the whole thing. But over time, it started evolving. I even made it my mantra. This person has something good to tell me. I just say that quietly or even openly before I pick up the call. Like, whoa, this person indeed has something good to tell me. From this phone call example, you could probably notice it that I'm kind of conflict avoidant. Indeed, I was or am still perhaps, the avoidant type, right? But what did I say in video 6? We have to embrace the things that are part of the avatar that we want to be, right? We want to be this. We want to become this. And therefore, part of what we become would have solved all of these issues that we are currently avoiding. So therefore, we have to show up for them. Another one of those times, I nearly didn't show up for the occasion, but I absolutely had to, right? And I was glad that I did. It was again finance related when payments were not coming in from the projects I was doing on time, and school fees had to be paid. It was close to exam time, and that's basically when the school holds you hostage to pay the school fees, otherwise your kids do not get to take the exam. And because I know that kids do get pulled out of the exam room, I preemptively went to the school office. I volunteered that, hey look, I know the exam is starting in 2 days. I don't have the school fees ready, but I could have it ready by 4 days from now. Could they take the exam first? So I was surprised to find out that they handed me a form. Here is a special request form for the deferment of payment of school fees. So you just need to write down your name, your child's details, and when you think you can get this paid by, and your child can take the exam in 2 days from now. You never try, you never know. And with that experience beneath my belt, you can see that I was already pulling up a series of personal successes. For example, up to this point, right? I went to fancy car showrooms, I checked out all kinds of nice luxury homes. I was early for the morning running races. I was picking up difficult phone calls. I even managed to defer payment for school fees that would have otherwise allowed my kids not to take an exam. And the next thing that happened took things even further. But you see, I've already built up a string of successes. A few days later, my money still wasn't in, and it was already at the date that I was supposed to pay. The kids had already taken half the exam, but they were now at the risk of really being pulled out of the classroom. So once again, I voluntarily went to the school office. And I said, well, you know what? Yes, I know I said I would pay today, but the funds is still not ready because of this. And they were like, oh, that's just too bad because you kind of promised that this was going to be the day that you pay up. So we would have to perhaps take your kids out of the examination room right now, and they could then take the exam along with those kids that have failed when your funds are ready. How does that sound? So again, I was starting to think, okay, no, the responsible, loving parent that is part of my avatar would not want my kids to have the disappointment on their faces. What I did next was what the you see happen. The Japanese school type TV series like Goku-sen, where the teacher Yankumi or her students were influenced by her. They would literally go, beg the principal over, onegaishimasu, 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 for as long and as many times that it takes until they get the support or the approval that they sought. The same worked out for me. And I clocked up yet another win. And those of you who watch some of my older videos, you know that I tend to drive my cars very hard. As a result of that, car breakdowns are so frequent for me, and to the point that all the cars in my garage are broken down. Because most of the time, the so-called courtesy car I got from the garage was super dodgy. It helped me to see what kind of woman my date was. I could easily filter out who was socially judgmental and who's not, who likes me for me, and who is more concerned about the image and etc. There was this one time where I just forgot how hot a day it was and the possibility of the car overheating. And it overheated in the most awkward junction and actually causing, a traffic obstruction. And the woman that was in the car with me didn't grumble in the slightest, was extremely supportive and concerned, and even took a detour to pick up a power bank for me to use for the rest of the day. But fortunately, that problem got solved soon after. So these are just some of the many times that I showed up where I nearly didn't, and I'm glad that I did. Let's hear it from you. Alright, have a think about some of the instances that you have also showed up where you nearly didn't. But as a result of that, your life has changed because it's opened you up to so much more possibility that wouldn't otherwise have been. If this is the first video in the series that you watched, I'm here doing a video series on a 30-day rebuild challenge. Follow along with the process, and remember, you don't have to fix your whole life. You just need to show up for today.